NHRA drag racing. It's simply awesome to see these cars and drivers performing at their limits. But when either gets pushed beyond the limit, that's when we all hold our collective breath. Every run at 300 miles an hour is a walk on the ragged edge, and not for the faint of heart. Strap in for a half hour of some of the more hair-raising moments you've ever seen. NHRA Thrills and Spills is coming at you. When it comes to thrills and spills, nothing compares to NHRA drag racing, except perhaps a few days in Vegas. You just met my friend the King, Elvis Presley. I'm Dave Reef, and the question I pose to you is, what makes drivers strap themselves into missiles, hurtle themselves down the racetrack at more than 300 miles an hour? The only answer I can come up with is the adrenaline rush. And today we're going to go around town, try to find a few fixes of our own. But what do you say we kickstart this program with a few pulse-pounding moments from the 2012 drag racing season? Now keep in mind, in every incident you're about to see, there were no serious injuries. The automobile. Chances are you ride in one or drive one nearly every day. Sure, it has four wheels and an engine, but the similarities between your car and a nitro top fuel or funny car stop there. Just ask ESPN analyst and former nitro driver Mike Dunn.
Well, when you talk about the differences between a stock production Toyota Camry engine making 270 horsepower versus a fuel funny car Toyota Camry engine making 8,000 horsepower, some of the differences are obvious. Take the engine block, for example. This is a V6 versus a V8 for the fuel funny car. Now, the short block assembly, which would consist of the crankshaft, all the rods and pistons, and the engine block, will run you about $2,800. The crankshaft in the fuel funny car, it'll run you about $4,000. Now, the engine in your production car, if you take care of it, change oil on a regular basis, it'll probably give you about 250,000 carefree miles. But the fuel funny car, if you take care of it, if you're lucky, you might get 2 miles out of it.
Well, don't go anywhere because we're just getting revved up on NHRA Thrills and Spills. Me, I'm suited up, ready for a zip line ride over Fremont Street. So don't go anywhere because when we come back, the sports science folks give us a fascinating breakdown of the science behind top fuel dragsters. Plus, we look at some of the highs and lows of being a pro stock motorcycle racer. And we find out what it's like to be the guy holding onto the wheel on a bad day like this. We got more NHRA Thrills and Spills on the way, baby.
When top fuel drivers hit the throttle, the world goes blurry. But one thing remains clear. 300 miles an hour is fast. That's NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing.
Welcome back to NHRA Thrills and Spills. Do you remember your first roller coaster ride? How long it took to actually get the nerve up and all the poking and prodding from your family and friends, but finally you gave it a shot. Truth be told, you were me. I was 4 years old. I screamed so loud in the middle of the ride they had to stop it and let me off. It actually happened that way. But now I'm proud to say I love roller coasters, just like this one they have here at New York, New York, which tops out at 67 miles an hour. And for me, that's a big time rush. But imagine if you drove a fuel funny car or a top fuel dragster. No big deal. You're used to going speeds up to 5 times faster.
The first time I made a run in a top fuel dragster, I remember lining up on the starting line, putting my visor down, about to put it on the high side, and said, this is it. This is the moment that I've been dreaming of my entire life.
I get to the stage lanes, at the front of the stage lanes, I'm strapped in. We turn the corner, go into the water box, and I just fell apart. I thought I was gonna throw up. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to do. I forgot everything. I kind of had to take a deep breath and refocus.
I'm nervous, I'm scared, but I can't let anybody know that.
First time I got in a nitro car was, it was at night in Palmdale, California. And I got in this thing, we started it up. I'm all excited and nervous. They got everything set and they're standing out in front of me and they're motioning me forward to come do the burnout. I'm looking at them, I let my foot off the clutch and it goes backwards. They're all looking at me like, oh my God, what have we done? So my eyeballs got as big as golf balls and I finally realized I had the thing in reverse.
I'll never forget the acceleration. When you hit that throttle, everything kind of goes black instantly. And you know, you gotta keep the mindset to go through that and continue straight down the track.
And it leaves and it gets out about 60 foot. And I'm thinking, oh, it's not that bad, I've got this. And then about 300 foot out, the clutch starts coming in and this thing is just scaring the crap out of me.
It hit me in my gut so hard that I couldn't breathe. And then it felt like somebody was just taking my stomach and just squeezing the life out of me, every ounce out of me. And then it just kept on getting more and more and more intense. And then once you finally pop that chute, somebody inflated you like a balloon and popped it back into you and you just come back to and you're just like, what just happened?
All right, I finally got up the nerve. It's time to take this bad boy for a ride. So as I strap in and Miss Alicia comes over and helps me with all the safety bars, we'll be ready to go. And well, safety bars, that may be standard operating procedure safety equipment on this roller coaster, but on a pro stock motorcycle, there's nothing like it at all. And you can best believe Scotty Polachek was keenly aware of that when this qualifying run in Dallas got ugly. Hold on.
190 miles an hour right at the finish line. The tire came off the bead and things got pretty scary from there. The bike just started going sideways, you know, sashaying back and forth. And I was just kind of along for the ride, hanging on, making sure that I didn't get separated from the motorcycle. The sachet might be kind of minimizing it a little bit because it was actually, you know, more violent than that, and it was, you know, kind of amazingly sideways. I mean, at 190 miles an hour, you don't expect the bike to do anything but go straight. And when it was going side to side like that, it was pretty tough, you know, just to hang on to it. First thing I thought is something is definitely not like it's supposed to be here. And then it turned and went the other way. And I thought, man, I better hang on because the bike's not liking it and it's going to get rid of me. So I just held on for dear life there. It's funny how things slow down in your mind when something like that happens and you can kind of remember step by step what was going on and what goes through your mind. You know, with the way the bike was going sideways, I just kind of had to, you know, try to stay in the center of the bike, you know, and not get off the side of it or any of that kind of stuff. But it was a little bit to handle there.
Polachek was lucky indeed. We've seen motorcycle runs go wrong, really wrong. When rider becomes separated from bike, bad things happen. Conversely, a good run from one of these riders seems almost uneventful, even at nearly 200 miles an hour. Sure, they make it look easy, but looks can be deceiving.
I'll take a big deep breath, I'll get a handful of this throttle, fingertips on the clutch, I'll roll about 7 inches and go ahead and activate that stage beam. Once we're both staged, I'm gonna go wide open, fire that clutch out of my hand, and throw all of my body weight as hard as I can forward. I have my shifter here. I go about 1 second flat in low gear. I punch second gear. At that point, I transfer all my weight to the back of the bike, and as I always say, I am flaps in, toes on the pegs, shift, shift. At about 1,000 foot, I'm in high gear, and I mean, we are getting it. Go through the finish line. We don't have a parachute, so we have to use a lot of brakes, and actually we use basically like a Jake brake on a big diesel truck. We'll chop the throttle. At 10,000 RPM, this baby decelerates really fast. A little over 6.8 seconds at 190 miles an hour. It happens fast. It's an awesome ride on an S&S powered Buell.
When we come back, we'll teach you some things I bet you didn't know about NHRA Top Fuel dragsters. Everything it takes to make the perfect run. And we'll show you everything it takes to make an imperfect run in a nitro car. Plus, funny car, funny driver. We go for a ride with NHRA legend John Force and his daughter Courtney. Woo! And just like that, my roller coaster ride comes to an end. But this edition of Thrills and Spills just keeps rolling on.
You hit the gas in a nitro funny car, it's just adrenaline. It's how can I keep this thing under control? How can I get it to the end? How can I make sure that I'm not the problem in the seat, making sure that we win the round of racing? But boy, when you hit the gas in that thing, it's hang on.
When you're holding on for your life, that's when you know your car's on a good run. When you don't see the other car out your window, that's when you know your car's going fast.
Whenever you hit the throttle, that car launches and it pushes you back in the seat so hard. You're doing anything you can to keep your head up, holding on for dear life to get to the finish line. You hit the chutes, and you know it's a good run because that thing pulled all the way to the finish line.
To better understand how Top Fuel dragsters cover 1,000 feet in less than 4 seconds, we'll start with the engine. When the driver hits the accelerator, nitromethane fuel is pumped into the engine at a rate equivalent to more than 100 gallons a minute. That's as fast as attack fire hoses. A supercharger forces 50 cubic feet of air into the engine every second, creating such an intense pressure that the fuel nearly solidifies before it ignites and burns at up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The result are pistons that fire 150 times a second and up to 10,000 horsepower, more than 11 times the power than under a NASCAR hood. But all that power is wasted without traction. The massive 17.5-inch wide racing slicks are made from a special blend of adhesive rubber that generates over 6 times more friction than an average tire. Surprisingly, these tires are inflated to just 7 pounds of pressure, about 20% of a typical car tire. This allows them to completely deform at the start, increasing traction by creating 25% more surface area that's in contact with the track. The transformation of the tire also stores up potential energy, helping the cars accelerate to 100 miles per hour in about 0.8 of a second. That's acceleration twice as fast as a fighter jet taking off from an aircraft carrier. In fact, a Top Fuel dragster accelerates so quickly that it could spot in IndyCar a 175-mile-per-hour flying start and still be able to pass the IndyCar before the finish line. Even though these cars shoot in a straight line down the track, steering has to be more precise than you think. At full speed, just 3 degrees of misalignment can cause the car to go off track right or left 10 feet in just 0.4 of a second. And while the start of the race is explosive, the finish is just as violent. As the car accelerates off the line, the driver experiences 5 Gs of force. That's nearly twice as much as an astronaut experiences at launch. When the parachute is deployed at the finish line, the driver is subjected to 6 Gs of deceleration. That's more Gs than he or she experiences at the start of the race. For a typical 170-pound driver, that's a force of over 1,000 pounds. That's like having the weight of a full grand piano against your chest. Top fuel dragsters can hit top speeds of over 330 miles an hour. At that speed, they could drive from New York to Los Angeles in less than 8.5 hours. For ESPN Sports Science, I'm John Brinkus.
Top Fuel, the fastest accelerating vehicles on planet Earth. 0 to 100 in less than a second. Truly the kings of NHRA drag racing. But the faster they go, the harder they crash. Do not put down that remote because we're not finished yet. We're going to go on a ride along with John Force as he's busy being John Force. You'll see. And we talked to some of the toughest drivers in the sport. Guys who went through this, then got back in the car to give it another try. Wow, better them than me. More NHRA thrills and spills on the other side.
When you leave that start line, that old hot rod, she hums, she sings. It's a real deep roar sound until she gets up on the tire and then she starts to scream.
Once the car gets going about 2 seconds into the run, it smooths out. And what's really strange, the faster you go, the quieter it gets in the car, which plays tricks on your brain.
And you're just holding on for dear life and you can't catch that last breath and you're going through the traffic and you hit those chutes. And then your car just snaps back down and snaps you forward. And when you feel that last bit of breath finally come back to you to revive you, that's when you know that you're on a good run, my friend.
And we welcome you back to NHRA Thrills and Spills in Las Vegas on a quest to find some excitement of our own. Well, here at Pole Position Raceway, you can get into a go-kart that goes 45 miles an hour. And on a tight, twisting road course like this, that's flat getting it done. But I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine going 7 times faster in a fuel funny car. Now imagine that flopper exploding, flames everywhere. Well, in 2012, it happened to Matt Hagan, and it happened to Todd Lysenko twice in the same weekend.
The scary part of it, the interesting part, it didn't lay over. Typically, these cars are mechanically starting to fail. You'll feel your body going forward. That never occurred. So consequently, it was just like instantly bang. I saw a lot of fire, and it was really light out. The body was gone.
For me, it was just such a shock because, you know, you're running down the track and everything's feeling right. The car's digging. It's up on the tire, and it's just, you know, it's just sounding good. You know, you're like, all right, the finish line's coming up. You can see it, and then next thing you know, it's kaboom, and you know, it's like, wow, it wrecks your whole world. You're like, whoa, what happened? You know, there's oil in your face. There's, you know, the car's starting to bounce. It's up and down. It's left and right. And you're trying to grab brake, but it's hopping off the ground so hard that you can't pull brake in the middle of the air because when you hit the ground, it makes you hop even more. So you kind of got to let it settle down a little bit. You're trying to pull the fire bottle, get everything shut down. There's a lot going on.
The first one, my visor was badly covered with oil. I just had a little bit of view at the bottom right corner of my visor. So at that point, I got a visual reference to the wall. And once I got the visual reference to the wall, I was able to steer the car straight, well, as straight as the car would allow me to steer down the racetrack.
I'd like to say I'm good enough to think about it and do this, or put one chute out and do 2 chutes or something. You just go through the motions and do everything you can to get the car shut down and you know, stop and keep it off of the guy beside you.
I think the second one was worse. It was a lot more fire. The fire stayed around a lot longer, so I was quite burnt. My visor was burnt badly. My helmet was burnt badly. My straps for my retaining my arms were burnt to the steering wheel, so it was difficult for me to get out of the car. The safety safari guys asked me to get out of the car, and I couldn't. I was literally bound in the car.
What a lot of people don't understand, they think all the air got under the body and that's why it blew it up in the air. These cars make 3,000 pounds of downforce. And, you know, to take 3,000 pounds and push it up in the air 4 or 5 foot, and, you know, that's a big boom.
What blows that car up in the air is an explosion from the engine. And that explosion blows, that same explosion hits me in the driver's cockpit. I'm sort of like sitting against the wall and get hit by, so it's a big physical jolt.
Unfortunately, when you blow up, you get a lot of replays. So it's one of those things where you get a lot of time to critique yourself, and you also you learn from it.
I've been told by many people there's 2 different types of funny car drivers. There's ones that have been in a fire, and ones that are waiting for a fire.
You know, the more experience you get, the better you're going to be at it. But I sure hope I don't get a lot of practice.
As if that wasn't enough, Lysenko had another huge crash at the season's last race at Pomona. Once again, the car blew sky high. And when you take 2,000 frames a second and slow it down, it looks like the car's gonna flat tip over. You hear people say that NHRA drag racing is a family sport, and it's true. Many of these racers and fans practically grew up at the track, traveling every weekend with their families. Courtney Force has been coming to the races her whole life, supporting her dad, the 15-time champion John Force. Well, finally, in 2012, Courtney made her debut in Nitro Funny Car. We followed them to the track one day, and we discovered that having John Force as a father and driving coach is anything but typical.
Now, where am I going? 146, is that the way we go? Huh?
I'm looking up how to get to the racetrack because you're lost.
Well, let me go. We just went totally the wrong way. God dog it. Okay. Hey, look at that signboard. Look at that. That freaked me out. Look at this. Courtney Fallon. Is it Fallon?
You don't know my middle name?
Look at that sign. Do you know people wait their whole life to be on that stupid sign?
It's embarrassing.
Embarrassing?
That's a giant picture of my face.
Yeah, well, if you was ugly as me, I could see you complaining. A lot of relatives in this town because every store is named Dillon. Dillon Liquor Store, Dillon Barbecue, Dillon Donut.
What are you talking about?
Oh, the name of the town is Dillon. I picked my little girl a flower.
The train
They are pretty.
stopped.
Oh.
There's no flower on it.
I meant well.
You lost the flower part of the
I
plant.
don't know how, I'm sorry. Honey, remember in life, it's a lesson. It's a thought that counts.
Got it.
I went for the flower. It's like going for the wind. Some days you just don't get it.
What is this?
I
A
don't know
weed? Thanks, Dad. I'll put it in my trailer.
And with that, we've come to the finish line here at Thrills and Spills, and quite possibly I have found the biggest adrenaline rush you can find in Las Vegas. I'm standing next to Omar atop the stratosphere. This is called Sky Jump. It's an 855-foot controlled free fall down to Las Vegas Boulevard. Certainly hope you enjoyed everything you saw in 2012, and with the 2013 Mellow Yellow Drag Racing Series right around the corner, you best believe there's going to be more Thrills and Spills. Oh, now I love it! Now I'm loving it! Woo! Hey! Yeah! Woo! That was good. That was good. And I will do it again. NHRA Thrills and Spills has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.